I heart dogs. Did you see a Charlie Kirk supporter ask him how long before more stolen elections must happen before it's okay to kill them? I did. I did see that, in fact. I'll tell you what, why don't we actually take a look at that clip real quick? This is a video of Charlie Kirk taking questions, taking audience questions. Give this question a listen.
At this point, we're living under corporate and medical fascism.
No.
This is tyranny.
No.
When do we get to use the guns?
Okay, so at this point you may be thinking to yourself, oh, he's just being hyperbolic, he's just joking, you know, it's just a joke, right? That's usually how people like this play it off. Just a joke.
And that's not a joke. I'm not saying it like that. I mean, literally, where's the line? How many elections are they going to steal before we these people?
So that's some serious shit right there. Let's keep listening, see what Charlie Kirk has to say as a response.
No, hold on. No, stop. Hold on. Now I'm going to denounce that. I'm going to tell you why.
Okay, he's going to denounce it, and he's going to tell us why. Fascinating. Well, first of all, his rhetoric led to this in the first place. This is a direct result of stochastic terrorism, something that I've been talking about for literal years. Stochastic terrorism is the public demonization of a person or group, resulting in the incitement of a violent act, which is statistically probable, but whose specifics cannot be predicted. Years ago, Bill O'Reilly was on his TV show talking about Dr. Tiller. He was an abortion doctor, and he was calling him all kinds of terrible names and getting his audience revved up into a blood frenzy over it, basically, until one day, one of Bill O'Reilly's viewers showed up to Dr. Tiller's office, waited until they closed, and he walked into the parking lot, and he killed him. Just like that. A perfect example of stochastic terrorism. I heart dogs. Tiller was killed while attending church. I appreciate the correction. That was my mistake. I thought he was killed in the parking lot. I will put that in the clip when I finally release it. You demonize somebody enough, you get your audience revved up into a blood frenzy, and point him in the right direction, it's statistically probable that one of your audience members is going to do something crazy because of all the demonizing that you've been doing throughout your career. And here we are, Charlie Kirk, denouncing what this guy has to say, denouncing it. Okay, great. I'm glad you're denouncing it, but what about the past, 5 years leading up to this that got this guy to this point? This fan of yours? He spent the first 2 minutes of his question praising Charlie Kirk, saying what a great guy he is. And here he is actually saying he is eager to take part in violent action against against the group that Charlie Kirk has labeled the enemy. On top of all of that, this is Charlie Kirk's fault. By the way, I don't give a shit if he denounces this or not. This is stochastic terrorism. That's exactly what this is. I do not give a shit if he denounces it. It's irrelevant. But let's listen to the denouncement anyways.
Now I'm going to denounce that. I'm going to tell you why. Because you're playing into all their plans, and they're trying to make you do this. That's okay. Just hear me.
Oh, not because violence is bad? Not because you think political violence leads to just an ugly mess? You're denouncing this because you think this plays into Democrats' plans, rather than because political violence is wrong, morally wrong. Okay.
You started with a compliment, so at least give me a little bit. They are trying to provoke you and everyone here. They are trying to make you do something that will be violent, that will justify a takeover of your freedoms and liberties, the likes of which we have never seen. We are close to have, we are close to have momentum to be able to get this country back on a trajectory using the peaceful means that we have at us.
Here, he has backed way up from his rhetoric that led to somebody having this kind of mindset, and he has backed himself right up against the wall and said, no, I want everything to be peaceful. Everything should be peaceful. Suddenly, he gives a shit about being peaceful. He spent the past 5 years getting these people whipped up into a blood frenzy, and now he wants peace. It's a little bit late for that. I'm sorry. I'm not going to accept this denouncement. You, Charlie Kirk, are responsible for this type of thing. This is on your head. To answer the original super chat that asked about this, did I see the Charlie Kirk supporter ask him how long before more stolen elections must happen before it's okay to I did see that, and I hope to see less of it. I wish that we could live in a world devoid of political violence. If Democrats needed a pretext to turn into tyrants, January 6th was that pretext. The Democrats are not looking for a pretext to take over the United States, whatever the fuck that even means. What happened when January 6th took place? Did the Democrats use that as a pretext? Of course not. The FBI went through and identified the people and charged them with a crime, and we kept on keeping on from that point forward. We weren't trying to take over the government or any of that other stuff or take people's guns like they were saying. None of that. Everybody is just trying to live life, trying to restore functionality to a broken government and continue on and protect everybody else from political violence, which, by the way, Charlie Kirk is making a whole lot more difficult than it needs to be. Hey, this is Owen. If you're comfortable, leave your first name and state at the sound of the tiny truck backing up.
Hi, Owen. My name is Ernest from Wisconsin. My concern is that Trump telling people not to vote in 22 and 24, it's also coinciding with the rise of Republicans carrying those black flags. And I'm just concerned that they're getting the idea that he wants them to not vote, but instead just start fighting and attacking people and stuff like that. I want to know what your thoughts are on that. You have a great day. Thanks.
Yeah, that is a little bit concerning. Is Trump going to kind of go over the deep end and encourage his audience to do something really, really dramatic, like fighting and stuff? I know you mentioned the black flags that they've been carrying, and that specific flag that you're talking about, let me pull it up, hang on. In general, black flags are used by enemy forces to signify that enemy combatants are going to be killed rather than taken prisoner, essentially the opposite of the white flag used to represent surrender, which of course is a violation of the Geneva Conventions, but Trump supporters don't really care about that. I know that a lot of Trumpists have been carrying these flags, these black flags, at events recently, and that is extremely concerning. But I think Trump's power really lies in stochastic terrorism more than anything, because if he actually comes out and tells his followers to straight up do something illegal, he knows that that would be like the signal that everybody needs to basically put him in jail or prosecute in some way. He doesn't want to go that far, so he's going to keep it subtle. In my opinion, I think what he's going to do is he's going to continue to demonize people and attack people, encourage his followers to come out at protests, and subtly kind of dog whistle that he wants something bad to happen to them, without crossing the line into illegal territory, without him actually crossing over the line into territory that could get him prosecuted. That's generally how I think it's going to go. I don't think there's going to be an inflection point where he just, pulls the trigger and says, that's it, I'm going full speed ahead and telling my supporters to actually take this violent action. But I don't know, I guess time will tell. We'll have to see. It wouldn't surprise me if he did do that, but I don't think that he's going to do that.
Hi there, my name is Lev from Colorado. I've been watching your show for a while, and I got to say I love it. It keeps me abreast of things that are going on in the other side's cultish community. But I always wondered, what do you think would happen if someone were to come up on stage with one of those televangelists and just stick to their guns that they're possessed by a demon or an eldritch god that just their Bible could not handle? Thanks if you answer this. Bye.
I appreciate it. I'm not sure I fully understand the context, but I assume what you're referring to is if somebody jumped on stage during one of their sermons and started saying that they're a demon or whatever that they can't stop. I know of a couple of situations in which, singers or bands, for example, were up on stage playing music, and then somebody jumped up to, hug them or something, Specifically, I'm thinking of the time Maynard James Keenan from Tool was singing the song Push It, and a fan jumped on stage to hug him, and it did not end well. It doesn't end well. What Maynard did was he grabbed the guy and body slammed him and then sat on his back until they could get a replacement singer in, and then they arrested him. With Jehovah's Witnesses being the generally non-violent type, they have had apostates show up at their conventions and their assemblies and stuff and start yelling things out. In fact, this happened to my family when I was young. I don't specifically remember it. My sister remembers it and was telling me about it. But anyway, there was an apostate at an assembly, a Jehovah's Witness assembly, and they were yelling things out, and Jehovah's Witnesses immediately shut their brains off. They closed their ears and their eyes and put their heads down and stopped listening or paying attention or anything. But the elders basically link arms facing outward and form a circle around the person so that they can't escape the circle. And the elders in this circle walk them out of the assembly hall. Usually they'll call the police, but of course police take forever to show up to anywhere. So that's the alternative, I guess. Link arms in a circle and walk them out yourself. My guess is that's probably what they would do if there was like an unwanted intruder on stage. I hope that answered your question. I wasn't quite sure if that was what you meant, but I'm assuming so.
Hi, Owen. My name is Ango. I called before. I was the one who said I was scared about coming out to my grandfather about being trans, and I took your advice. I didn't tell him that I'm trans, and a few hours ago, I got a call saying that he had passed away.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry to hear that. I had my grandfather pass away recently, too. My grandfather and I weren't terribly close, though. The only other person I've ever had in my life that I was even reasonably close to, or that I even knew that well, was my dad. My dad died, and I didn't have a good relationship with him, but it did still hit. I know when my grandfather was alive, he was a massive Trump supporter, deep Trump supporter. One of the biggest Trump fans that you could possibly imagine. He was like, I think 89 maybe when he died recently, somewhere in there. He was up there, he was older, and I knew that I couldn't talk politics with him. I knew that if I did, it was not going to end well. Every time I was around the guy, he was good to me, you know, he never did anything bad to me in any way at any point in my life, really. Except when I moved away from Connecticut, he just, he kind of forgot about me. He had other grandkids and was taking care of them and hanging out with them and all that stuff. I just wasn't on his radar. So every time I went over to his house and talked to him, maybe once every 3, 4, 5 years as an adult, super rare, I talked to him about anything except for politics because I knew that he would have a terrible adverse reaction to the fact that I am left of center. Even a little bit left of center. Even being center, my grandfather would have been very, very unhappy with it. He wanted everybody in his life to be far right, basically, like him. Like, he would wear Trump shirts into town. Like, why are you trying to be inflammatory, Dude just wanted to be inflammatory about Trump. I knew I couldn't discuss religious or political things with him. It was off the table because it wouldn't end well. I hope that your decision to not come out to your grandfather sits well with you. I could only speak from my own perspective, knowing my own grandfather, but I know it's a hard decision to make and a hard situation to be in, and I hope that things go well from here. Good luck. I know it is not fun dealing with this kind of thing.
Hi, Owen. This is Maya. I'm calling in from Tennessee. I am a very devoted Latter-day Saint, but I am slipping very quickly with my religion. I've heard a bunch of terrible things, and it's gone really downhill since my miscarriage, which happened in September. I ended up having someone tell me that I was not a true Christian because I had sex before marriage, and that is why God killed my baby. Any advice on how I can start my journey into atheism? And yeah, just any advice is welcome. Thanks for everything you do. I enjoy your videos. Bye.
I appreciate the phone call. Of course you know that assertion is absolutely ridiculous and wrong that somebody would say that to you. Morally wrong for somebody to say something like that. For somebody to tell you that, what was it?
I ended up having someone tell me that I was not a true Christian because I had sex before marriage, and that is why God killed my baby.
That is like new levels of insane. And I know that it seems obvious, but I need to make sure that you hear it. That is bullshit. That person was incorrect and also morally wrong simultaneously. That being said, if you're leaving Mormonism behind, I would recommend starting with the CES letter. Read the entirety of the CES letter from beginning to end because it has phenomenally good objections in it that apparently were never posed to Joseph Smith or the leaders of the church at any point. I don't know how they've avoided questions like this entire time, but start with that. Read the entire thing beginning to end. And as far as atheist content, I don't have anything against Christians or Christianity. Nothing against it. In fact, I want Christians to be on my side and work with me against extremism. We need the help of people inside the religion to destroy extremism. That's my biggest issue. So don't think that I have anything against Christians. Coming out, you may feel some level of rage against your previous religion. I know I certainly did. In fact, most people feel some level of rage against the religion that they're exiting because they feel like they've been lied to and mistreated their entire lives, which they have. But try to channel that rage into something positive, something good and useful and helpful. I know a lot of people coming out of religion channel that rage into attacking moderate Christians who don't necessarily deserve it. Like I said, just try to focus it into something useful. Like him or hate him, Christopher Hitchens wrote a great book on this. God is not great. Religion poisons everything. It was an extremely insightful and interesting read. And the guy was also kind of right-wing in a lot of ways, but, divorce the author from the material. It was pretty useful. So I would recommend reading that. Give it a shot. And good luck.
Hi, Owen. I'm Chloe. Big fan of yours. I just had a question about religion. My dad was not a very good person, very abusive, all that stuff. But then he found God and became a pastor, and he changed for the better and started becoming a good person and, not so abusive. And I was just wondering, I don't believe there is a God. So if there's not a God, then why did he change so much when he started following religion? Thanks. Bye.
That's a good question. Cults use these tactics all the time. What they were basically doing was modifying his personality through a system of rewards and punishments and a number of other things. Most religions do these things that you find in cults to a lesser degree. To some degree, they'll do it, like behavior modification, information control, emotional control, instilling fears and phobias of leaving the group, love bombing, things like that. All of this stuff kind of comes together to modify somebody's personality to be who they want that person to be. Like I said, it doesn't need to have been a cult that did this necessarily. Moderate religions do some of this stuff to some degree, and given enough time or enough devotion to it, people can brainwash themselves over time by doing this stuff. Like you'll find some Methodist religions are super moderate, even Lutheran ones. Moderate, chill, don't hate anybody for anything, all that stuff. But somebody comes into the religion, they just discover religion, and they throw their whole heart and soul into this whole thing, they can slowly over time brainwash themselves without it actually being a cult. And it sounds like that's probably what happened to your dad if he had a complete personality change. He recognized that he didn't like the person that he used to be, and he latched onto a group that he knew was capable of changing his personality, for better or worse. In my opinion, it's okay to change your personality in certain situations, like, for example, with a therapist. A therapist can help you work out a lot of these bad habits and bad behaviors that you have, and in fact, therapists will actually engage in behavior modification with you. Cognitive behavioral therapy. So when it's science-based, I'm all for it. When it's not, like when it's based on a religion, like Lutheranism, Methodist, Baptist, something like that, I have a problem with it. I don't believe that it's ethical or moral to modify somebody's behavior when you don't know what you're doing. And that's basically what happened to your dad, what it sounds like to me. So anyways, I hope that answered your question.
Hi, so this is Orion from California. Just curious on what your take on the devil. Being raised Catholic most of my life, there's a fascination, at least in my part, for the devil, and I've always talked to religious people about the devil concerning his role.
I appreciate that. Actually, this voicemail got cut off prematurely, as you can tell, because I think they got disconnected, or maybe they didn't know what to say next, so they hung up. I'm not even sure what happened, but it's a shame that they didn't get to finish out the voicemail and all of that, because it's a super interesting question, I think. People in different cultures and religions view Satan very differently. Like, everybody in the U.S. has a specific idea of who and what Satan is, and what he does, and how he does it, and all that stuff. If you listen to Pat Robertson, you'd believe that Satan is going around to yard sales, possessing items, so that when you bring it home, you allow him into your house. Because apparently he can only enter a house if he's invited, like Dracula or something. Jehovah's Witnesses have a similar idea, that Satan can be carried in on items, like physical objects that were purchased at like Goodwill or something. Jehovah's Witnesses, at least, kind of warn against going to yard sales when you don't really know the person very well. They're a real superstitious bunch, Jehovah's Witnesses are. A lot of different religions have different views of who and what Satan is. But you know what's interesting? Jewish people don't. Jewish people didn't have a concept of Satan all the way up until, I don't know if they even do now. I'm not sure if they have a view of Satan or if they believe in Satan, even to this day. There was no Satan in the Old Testament. But the fascinating thing about it is that Christians have written Satan into the Old Testament where he wasn't before. For example, the snake that talked Eve into eating the apple, a lot of Christians say that that was Satan. It was not. It was just a snake. That's it. God was so miffed with snakes for that one snake taking that action that he cursed the entire species to crawl on their bellies to the end of their days. Nothing to do with Satan. I seriously thought it was Satan when I was younger. Another place where Christians have written Satan into the Old Testament where he wasn't before was the book of Job. Supposedly Satan is testing Job and testing God's resolve and blah, blah, blah. Testing Job's love for God or whatever. So he takes his entire family and he takes his land and his calves and all the other whatever stuff he took. And it was supposed to be Satan doing all this. The Bible doesn't say it was Satan. It says it was an adversary. That's the word that they use specifically. It was actually depicted as like an angel who wondered if Job really was loyal to God. Not trying to put him to the test, not trying to attack him, not pure evil like Christians view Satan as today. It was just an angel asking a question. Does Job love you for what you give him, or does he love you just for you? If you go back and look at all the references that Christians make to Satan in the Old Testament, it's fascinating to realize that there really are actually none originally. Oh, and another thing. It's almost written like God was the bad guy, but the Bible was written to make God seem like the good guy. Aaron Ra was talking in a video recently that he did about how God has a string of lies and broken promises throughout the Bible, but he couldn't think of a single example of Satan lying to anybody in the Bible. It's kind of interesting to think to yourself, like, is the Bible, like, there was a war between God and Satan, right? Did God lose that war, and then Satan took control of the throne and had all of his followers, all of God's ex-followers, write the Bible like he was the good guy? I mean, I don't believe in any of this shit. It's just kind of an entertaining thing to think about. It's amusing to me. So hopefully that answered your question. Thanks for the voicemail.